John Franklin here with the Combat Press World Series of Fighting 25 pre-fight show. I am joined by the president, Ray Sefo. So right off the top, what I want to talk to you about, and it sort of is the overarching theme of the card, is the 155-pound division. You guys have a huge commitment to the 155-pound division. So Chael said last time I talked to him that the 145-pound and 155-pound divisions are the best divisions in MMA. They're the most stacked divisions. They're the hardest to be at the top of. He said there's 10 John Joneses in the 145-pound and 155-pound division, worldwide. Right. So, and you guys seem to have good long-term health. You have the Fodor brothers, you have Karos, and you have Phoenix Jones. You have Ozzy Dagulagov, who's a guy, last time you and I talked, right, you said Ozzy might be in line for a title shot. Right. You just signed Cosmo Alexandre. I mean, you guys have some depth at this. Jason High's fighting, Esteban Payan, either one of those guys could be a title contender. And then you have the tournament. Those are all the guys outside of the tournament. Right. Then you have the tournament. My question to you is, what do you see at 155 pounds that is making you make such a commitment to that division?
Well, obviously, the number one guy there is Justin Gaethje. And when you have a guy and a champion like Justin Gaethje, who is a promoter's dream, who is a fan's dream to watch, you want to continue to build that division. And, when you got guys like Luis Palomino, the names that you've named, Brian Foster, Sefrino, Mike Ritchie, I mean, the list goes on, Brian Cobb, the young kid and Rich Petichnock. I mean, there's so many names there and so much talent there that Adi and I sat down and we said, you know what, let's do this. Instead of trying to find a number one contender, this is the way to do it. And so, and the fact that a tournament is something that fans enjoy to see, promoters like myself, I enjoy to watch that as well as promoting the show. But then it also really gives you a number one contender. It doesn't, nobody can say, well, I'm next in line or I'm next in line. Now they have the opportunity to be that number one contender by, winning this tournament. So, and we're not just looking at this. I mean, we're obviously looking at putting on other weight classes. For example, the heavyweight division. Right. We're going to look to sign some more heavyweights and look for a number one contender for that weight class as well. So when I first put this together, that was my mindset, was to do one-night tournaments. Right. And then, Ali and myself sat down and talked, and a couple of other members of the team, and we kind of like, okay, let's put that on hold. Let's focus on, promoting the fighters that we have, and slowly build our name and brand awareness. And now we're at that point that I feel that we're being out there. We're on NBC. We're in over 80 countries around the world. So it's time to kind of do something a little bit different in the sense of what we're doing as in World of Fighting. And so. And everybody, the feedback that we're getting from people is nothing but positive. And the fans are looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. And I think when you look at the card, it's such an exciting card that I couldn't really pick. There are guys there's a few guys I could name names that could come through, but it's a tournament. Anything can happen. That's the thing about tournaments. At the end of the day, the guy that's got to get to become the winner or the number one contender to fight for that title against Justin Gaethje, you really got to be mentally strong to, fight through certain injuries. Because without a doubt, some of them are gonna get bruising here and there throughout the fight, and to get to the finals. And so, by the time they face someone like Justin Gaethje, they've been there, done it, been through it, and it's just going to make them even more well prepared for someone like Justin Gaethje, who is a machine and knows no other gear other than coming forward.
I know that's kind of an interesting reward for you have this tournament that you win, and the reward is you get to fight Justin Gaethje. So a couple pieces of housekeeping right out front. First off, the two guys who win the alternate bouts, will they then fight each other? Because I know they exist to be if someone drops out due to injury. So if you win your alternate bout, are you just sort of waiting in the wings, or will you then fight the other guy?
No. The alternate guys, what would happen is if one of the losers can't. So the way it's going to happen is two fighters are going to go in there. One's going to win and one is going to lose. Mm-hmm. The fighter that wins, if for some reason can't continue, the guy that lost will have the opportunity to continue in that spot. Now, if he can't continue in that spot,
then the alternate guys. Okay.
Yeah.
And then take me through the decision to make the early rounds 2-round fights with no elbows.
Correct.
What's the decision making behind that, and then what happens if there's a draw?
Right. So what happened was, as we know, one of the reasons why I decided there was going to be no elbows in the quarterfinals and the semifinals is because we could have a guy that's dominating the fight, winning the fight, in the last 10, 20 seconds somehow gets taken down, gets cut with an elbow, wins the fight, but can't continue because he's been cut. Right. So that was the reason for that, for taking the elbows away. Now in the finals, it's full rules. Right. Unified rules is elbows are allowed and everything else. So, but that was the main reason why we took elbows out for the quarterfinals and the semifinals, is because we didn't want somebody that was dominating the fight and the last half a minute gets cut, wins the fight, and then can't continue. So, but yeah, other than that.
And as far as the 2-round situation, what if each guy wins a round?
Well, in terms of that judging, that's the reason why we have a fourth judge.
Okay.
So that fourth judge is going to make the decision. In K1, what they did was, if there was a draw, there was an extra round. And then if that was a draw, there was going to be another extra round. And if that was a draw, they would go back to whoever won the first round. Okay. That's how K1 did it. But here we have a fourth judge who's going to say, okay, this is what I see and this is what I saw, and this guy's, this guy won the fight. So it's never been done before. So, it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. So I want to get to the individual fights real quick, and we'll just hit them quick because so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win. You tell me why I'm crazy.
Okay.
But the other thing I wanted to ask you is you fought in one-night tournaments before.
Right, many a times.
Okay. When you go into a one-night tournament, is your mentality different, or is it just a fight? I'm going to win this fight and move on to the next, or do you really prepare yourself mentally differently? Do you try and get guys out of there quicker? Do you try and, is it a different mentality?
My mentality was go out there and fight hard. But at the same time, fight intelligently. At the same time, when I'm in camp, I visualize getting hurt. Because the reality is, and some people or some coaches may say, well, that's kind of silly that you would think like that. Well, no, it's not, because the reality is, if I kick a guy and he checks it, I'm going to have a sore leg. You know what I mean? Right. Or if I get a few kicks in my leg, I'm going to feel those kicks when the period of while I'm sitting around waiting for the next match. You know what I mean? So I go into this as I'm in camp. I prepare myself mentally, understanding the realities of what's going to happen in the fight when I win, and then when I go into the next round, and then from there when I go into the next round. Okay, it's different. There's one tournament where I went in there, I knocked the guy out in a minute and a half in the first round, and I go the semis. I go in there and I knock the guy out in 2 minutes in the first round. So I'm fresh for the finals, but it doesn't happen like that all the time. Right. You know what I mean? So the reality is you got to focus. You got to really prepare yourself mentally on how to deal with the injuries, how to deal with the bruises and what have you, and how to overcome it. So when you come out, you're ready to scrap again.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so let's get to the fights. We'll talk about the first quarterfinals, obviously, and then we'll just talk about an overall winner. Luis Palomino versus Rich Petishnak. I got Luis Palomino running through me. Just fought Gaethje. Petishnak fought last January of 2014 against Justin Gaethje. That does make him a wild card.
Right.
So we don't know what he's been doing from January 2014 till now.
Right.
Am I crazy for thinking Palomino's going to go through him?
You're not crazy at all. I would have to lean a little bit towards Palomino also, just for that reason, because he's been active, he's fought at the highest level. Rich hasn't fought for a while, but Rich is a tough cookie. So, who knows? He might come out and might have, just go, you know what? This is my opportunity. I'm going to take it. So you never know. But if you're absolutely not crazy for leaning towards that way.
Brian Foster versus Charles Zeffirino. Now this is, I've been watching you guys' stuff. This is Senior Vice President Ali Abdelaziz's fight to watch. This is his fight. He thinks that this is going to be the best fight, and he thinks it's the toughest path.
I would have to agree.
Okay, so I have Brian Foster's telling anybody to listen that he's knocking everybody out, and they're just on the train tracks on the way to Justin Gaethje. So I have Foster. I have him taking him out here, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as Brian Foster thinks it's going to be, and as most people will think. I mean, Foster probably could have maneuvered himself for a title shot without this tournament, so he's got a lot on the line here. If he goes out in the first round to a high-level guy, title shots go away. So what are your thoughts on that?
It is, it's funny you say that, because I agree. I have to agree with Ali. That is the fight, I think, to watch out for in terms of being a 50-50 fight. They're both tough guys. They both can, are very good on the ground. They're both very good stand-up. It really depends on where that fight ends up. I think if it goes to ground, I kind of lean towards Zeffirino more. If it stays longer on the feet, it could go either way. So, that's one fight I'm definitely looking forward to.
It's a very exciting fight. Next up, Brian Cobb versus Mike Ricci. Same thing. Cobb has a long layoff. Both Patishnak and Cobb have histories with Justin Gaethje, so that may have been their tickets to this tournament. But Mike Ricci's a high-level guy. Once upon a time, the third star in the tri-star Holy Trinity with St. Pierre and McDonald. So he's good everywhere. Does struggle with wrestlers. So what are your thoughts on that fight?
Again, it's a tough one to call, because Mike Ricci is definitely a talented fighter, but Brian Cobb, his outing with Justin Gaethje, to me, I thought he won the first round in that fight, and so already, he's coming in with that kind of mentality that if he can beat Justin in one round with Justin is probably the whole tournament to him. You know what I mean? So if he has that kind of mindset, again, and this is the reason why it's so exciting for me, is because it's really hard to pick who could win, who could come through in the first quarters. But at the same time, the guy that you think about that could come through easily could easily lose also. Just from what, again, I've been in so many tournaments that anything can change with the blink of an eye,
And the interesting thing about that, as we get on to this next fight, which is super interesting to me, but the interesting thing about what you said is, if you have these guys with these longer layouts, so let's say you stacked it with 8 guys and they were the top 8 guys at lightweight in the World Series of Fighting, all those guys know that even if they lose in a tournament, they're one fight away from potentially getting to Justin Gaethje again. Some of these guys in this tournament are not one fight away from Justin Gaethje if they lose.
Well, this
is their shot.
So
you can't discount. You can't really put a price tag on a guy's motivation when he knows this is his shot. So next up, again, Jorge Patino and Islam Mamedov. Patino's been around a lot. He's been around forever. But when I watch Mamedov fight, he's one of these. I call him these Dagestani blankets. Like when he gets on you, he's not trying to get off you. He's Musasi. He's these guys that just, Nurmagomedov. He's these guys that just get on you and it's a wrap. I like him here, but again, Patino's fought everybody.
Exactly. And Islam, there's no easy fight in the tournament. And Islam does bring that kind of, experience in terms of his wrestling. He's very strong. He's a strong grappler on the ground. I think... but again, you're talking about George Patino, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, who's been around, who can bang. So I think if the longer the fight stands, I would probably lean towards more Patino. But if it gets to the ground, I think it's a battle of who has the better control, who has top precision. So, and I think Islam's top game is stronger than Patino's. So, it's again another fight where it just really, and this is the exciting thing about mixed martial arts, is because there's so many ways that you can win this fight, and so it really depends on who wants it more, who has better timing, and who has better positioning.
And the interesting thing is, when I wrote my preview, I said, as much as I have the guys that I feel like are the chalk, like when they say the NCAA tournament, the guys that are higher seeded, if they all go through, they're the chalk. The guys that I have that I felt, if you guys seeded, it would be the higher seeds. I felt confident in picking them, but at the same time, that never happens. You never have a tournament where the guy who's all four favorites end up in the semifinals.
Right.
So then the question becomes, okay, well then who's not gonna? And they're all sort of pitched close enough that something can happen. And again, that's what makes it interesting. For me, I picked Foster to win. I have him in the finals with Ricci. But again, there's that Mamedov thing that sort of is, I could see a scenario where Mamedov outpoints Ricci and beats a tired Foster in the final.
Right.
So that's what makes this so fascinating.
Right. Exactly. No. Exactly. Again, I go back to my own experiences. I remember one tournament, one K1 Grand Prix tournament where Ernesto lost in the quarterfinals. The guy that he lost, Bob Sapp, the guy that he lost to, couldn't continue, came through, won the semis, goes through to the finals, and wins the whole tournament.
Right.
So, tournaments is, listen, not taking anything. Ernesto Hus is not only a legend in the game of in kickboxing, but a very strong-minded individual as well. So again, like I've been saying all along, all these guys, it's one thing to fight one fight, but I don't think any of these guys have actually been in there to fight three guys to win.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a long night.
So when you talk about qualifying from the quarters to the semis, that's another mindset again. You know what I mean? And so and this is why it's so fascinating and interesting and exciting, because whoever has the strongest mindset to come through and continue to go through to the finals is the guy that's going to come out on top.
Well, and also just to kind of put a period on that statement, it's the muscle memory, the mentalness of once you're done with a fight, your routine is to start to shut it down, start to recover, your mind goes elsewhere.
Yeah.
So now you're finishing a night's work, which you're used to being the end of your night, and it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. So I want to talk about the Jason High Esteban Payan fight real quick. With all due respect to Justin Gaethje, with all due respect to Luis Palomino, Jason High could be the best 155-pound fighter we don't know. He's been out for a year, and the last person he fought is now the 155-pound champion of the UFC. So we don't really know what we're getting. What are you expecting to see from Jason High, like when you signed him, and what are you expecting to see in this fight?
Jason High is a guy with all the tools to be champion. Jason High has a good ground game. He has power. He has speed. He has explosiveness. He has all the tools to be champion. I think, but there are times where I've seen Jason High turn up, and it's not the Jason High that I know is that guy that can be champion.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's just a matter of time. Having his first fight in WSOF fighting, and then we'll see where he goes from there, see what his next fight is. But here, I think 2-3 fights, and he'll definitely be in that title contention.
All right, sounds good.
Given that he wins those 3 fights, 2 or 3 fights.
Sounds good. The fight's this weekend. Tell the fans where they can find it.
You can watch it live on NBC Sports Network, and tune in on WSOF.com, or come and see us live at Comerica Theatre.
All right, sounds good.